All right, let's get more on this now from Greg Simons. He's an associate professor at the Institute for Russian and European Studies at Uppsala University. Good to have you on the program with us. In regards to this missile strike in Poland, how close do you think we got to NATO getting directly involved in this war?
Well, potentially it could have been very serious, because if it had been taken at face value, which was taken at the very beginning, then we would be one step to a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia.
Even if this missile was not fired from Russia and in fact was an accident, is there greater concern today in light of this, that this war could spill beyond Ukrainian territory, whether deliberate or by accident?
Well, I mean, it's absolutely heading this way. I mean, Ukraine's position on this seems to be to try and draw NATO into a more direct involvement in Ukraine. Otherwise, they would have already been on board that, yes, this was most likely a Ukrainian surface-to-air missile, which was fired to intercept the Russian missiles, which were attacking Ukraine at that time. So you got a lot of different contradictory geopolitical goals around this particular conflict. I mean, Ukraine, frankly, needs more direct NATO involvement if it is to win this conflict. And this seems to be the current aim of Zelensky, who's caught in quite a trap.
Yeah, so where does this all leave NATO, which, of course, as you said, is the main backer of Ukraine?
Well, this leaves NATO in a very precarious position, potentially, because on the one hand, they acknowledge that, yes, this is, I mean, even Biden has said that this is parts of a surface-to-air missile system fired by Ukraine to intercept the Russian missiles. So it is not Russia at all. And yet, I mean, as I say, they are supporting Ukraine, but at the same time, to go any closer risks a much larger and a much more costly confrontation with Russia. So it seems to be from the NATO side and from the US side a cooling down, because if we look what has been said recently, I mean, you've had these signals not only from the US, such as General Milley, who said it's time for negotiations. And at the same time in G20, Lavrov said Russia is open for negotiations. But Ukraine is in a position where it's the object and not the subject in this geopolitical game of negotiations.
Poland, after this missile strike, had said that it would invoke discussions under Article 4, which would have triggered further consultations about how to defend itself. Now, Poland has, of course, walked back from that now that we believe that this missile did not come from Russia. But will we see Poland and other countries that neighbor Ukraine likely increase their air defenses in response? And do you think that even that further raises the risk of an escalation?
Well, yes. I mean, it depends how far you go, because, I mean, on the one hand, this seems to have been a rather tragic accident and very unintentional by all parties. But at the same time, this runs the risk for those civilians on border areas being inadvertently hit by such things in the future. And so there is a necessity to beef up defences against that. But how will that be interpreted by Russia, of course? And so there needs, and I mean, both sides, they're not having a very good level of communication or trust between each other. So, I mean, there are so many elements, dysfunctional elements, that increase the risk and hazard of something happening which will escalate things even further. So, yeah, one needs to tread very carefully.
Is this putting Ukraine at odds with NATO, with Zelensky calling for further investigation, whereas NATO is saying, look, we pretty much know that this was an accident?
Yes. I mean, this is very much politically putting those differences between NATO, or more broadly speaking, the Western backers and Ukraine. because, I mean, politically, for the West to become involved more overtly and more directly, it's a massive political risk. It's also going to be economically very costly at a time when citizens are actually decreasing their support for a continued long war in Ukraine. I mean, even in the US, I mean, polls are indicating that people want a negotiated peace. Of course, this is impossible for Zelensky because if he negotiates a peace, I mean, he's going to be killed most likely. I mean, he's already had the chief of general staff made some indirect threats to him recently. So he treads a very dangerous line. So hence the necessity to drag the West into a more direct and open conflict.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Greg Simons joining us from Uppsala, Sweden. Thank you.